Hi,
Yeah.
welcome on the Scenic Roots.
Thank you, Jennifer. I love your background. It's so beautiful.
Thank you.
And I'm just so happy to be here. I have listened to your podcast and it's powerful.
Thank
It
you
is
so
it
much.
is very special. I love the way you combine spirituality with business. I think it's so important and needed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always I don't know, I sometimes I think it's hard to market and it's like this and that,
Mhm.
right? Because people are usually like, oh, like she's like the sales, the numbers lady, or she's like the
Mhm.
woo woo lady. And I'm like, I do like a bit of that and I do like a bit of this. So I'm kind of
Uh-huh.
like in
Yeah, you're
between.
balanced. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I already feel like we're getting into the juicy bits.
Uh-huh.
Before we do that, so anyone who's tuning in today, this is really like the scenic route is unscripted. We have a conversation like we would even if the mic would not be running. Um, but today we're actually meeting for the very first time. We decided to kind of like let our intuition run the show. So we'll see where that gets us. I'm sure we're gonna get somewhere juicy anyway. Um, and before we dive right in, Kristin, give us like some idea of who you are. Like, what were the major crossroads that got you to where you are today?
Yeah. So I started my first business when I was in my early 20s. It was a pet sitting and dog walking business. And I had no idea what I was doing at all. I had never taken a business class, had always actually kind of secretly despised business owners and thought they were too straight laced and not creative. And I just had all these preconceived notions of business and business owners, which were totally inaccurate. And I discovered that as I became a business owner. What I realized is that I needed to educate myself in order to create a successful business because, like I said, I had no idea how to get clients, how to keep clients, how to market my business, how to create profit in a way that actually worked for me and helped me work smarter rather than harder. And so I began enrolling myself in my own business course at night. I got books from the library. That's how long ago it was. And
I remember those days.
yeah, it was no there was no Amazon in those
No
days.
chat GPT to do
No,
your homework for. Nope.
exactly. No ebooks. It was just like, okay, I'm going to get, actual books from the library and so I got a bunch of business books and began reading them and taking notes and began learning from these skilled business masters. And as a result, I was able to see my business begin to transform over and over. And one of the books that had a really big impact on me was the E Myth. And it was
Oh,
about
yes.
creating passive income. It was about really running your business in a way that could eventually run
Mm-hmm.
without you. And that was really revolutionary to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I also read hiring books that helped me hire really wonderful people. But in the beginning, I did not know what I was doing. And I hired pretty bad people who, had I kept them, would have caused my business to really suffer. But I was able
Mm-hmm.
to let them go pretty quickly. And then I had someone contact me about 5 years into my business. I had a website, I had somebody find my website, and she was a pet sitter in New York City. And I was in Northern California running my business. And she said, I don't know how I found your website, but you look like you're very successful. Would you be willing to coach me? And that was in the year
Oh,
2000. And so I began
coaching wasn't a
coaching.
thing.
It wasn't a thing in the year 2000. And I said, I'd love to help you. And so she hired me to be her coach. And within a few months, her business began to grow and become
Wow.
successful in a way that she had always longed for. And her pet business community, the pet sitters and dog walkers she knew in New York City, noticed it. And they said, what is your secret sauce here? And she said, Kristin. And so they began working with me. And, this West Coast girl, me, all of a sudden had all these kind of tough New York City dog walkers and pit sitters. And, they were pretty badass, and they were really able to succeed. And what I loved about these New York
Wow.
City business owners is that they all had the same business, but there was collaboration rather than competition. It was so heartwarming. I mean, the fact that she shared me with her
Yeah.
pet business tribe said a lot, but then the fact that they told their friends, and gradually I had pet business owners from all over the country working with me, and eventually all over the world. So within 5 years, from 2000 to 2005, I had, hundreds of pet business owners that I was coaching all over the world. And they said, I would love for you to write a book. Would you be willing to write a book so that I can read you at 3 a.m. when I'm
Yeah.
struggling in my business? And so I said, sure. And I wrote a book. And I actually wrote that book, 70% of that book, in 2 long weekends.
No
I
way.
sequestered myself in my little cottage in front of my fireplace, sat on the floor with my back to my sofa, and began
Just
writing this
downloaded.
book. Yep, it just downloaded from Spirit, like 70% of it. And then I hit writer's block after 2 weekends. And I just had a really hard time kind of filling in the missing pieces. And so I began working with a writing coach who helped me really figure out, what needed to be in there in order to create a really succinct,
Yeah.
comprehensive book for pet business owners. And I've since written 6 books for pet business owners.
Wow.
Yeah, and 5 of them are audiobooks because a lot of people these days prefer listening rather than reading, which is such
I
a
mean,
great
you
way to
can walk your
learn.
dog and listen to your
Exactly. You
book,
can
so that's
and
a win.
and yeah, and podcasts are such a way for us to listen and learn too. And I listen to podcasts while I'm washing the dishes, and it makes it really fun actually, instead of this
Yeah.
drudgery. It's like, ooh, I get to listen to this new podcast.
Yeah.
So I just finished my newest book, which is going to be out early next year in 2024, which is for all types of business owners. And also, what began happening with the pet business owners is they began either retiring from the pet business and starting another business that was unrelated to pets, or they told their family and friends about me, who then contacted me
Yeah.
to help them in their various
Yeah.
businesses. And so now
So it
I'm
was a
at
very organic
it
branching
was.
out.
It really was. And that's the way I've always run my business. And that's the part of business that I really love, is like listening deeply to the soul of the business and what the business wants and what I want, right? And a lot of times those are in alignment. It's like my soul lines up with the business soul, the soul of my business. And when those two are compatible, there's magic.
Yeah.
And it flows. There is synergy, and it's just effortless, easy, smooth, and delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And it ties in nicely with, like, I think what you said, like the one book that inspired you, like The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, of like how I think one of his main theses in the book is that you have to work on your business and not just in your business.
Yes.
And how so many of us, right? We start our businesses because we are good at something. We have a skill that we do incredibly well. Copywriting, taking pictures, designing websites, whatever. And then we're like, oh, okay, so I can do this as a business. And then you're like, oh, ooh, then you start getting a few clients, all is well. And then it comes like the valley of despair. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, this is not what I thought it would be.
Exactly. And it's, it's one thing to be able to have a passion or even a skill in whatever it is you're doing for your business, whether that be developing a product or a service.
Yes.
It's another thing entirely to run a business. That is a whole other skill set.
Yeah. Oh
That
God.
requires learning. It requires, and it can be trial and error. You know, one way to
It is
fast track that.
it is
Sorry. Yeah.
99% try and error, right?
It really is. Making
no
mistakes.
one has the crystal ball.
No.
Right.
No.
You don't know. Even the ones, I don't know, the ones you look up to,
Yeah.
they failed a gazillion times.
Mm-hmm.
They just recovered quicker than maybe others.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't know that this is going to work.
That's right. And maybe
Just
they're
don't.
still discovering, you know, because something may work for a time.
Oh, yeah.
And then for whatever reason, could it be a recession?
Yes.
Could it be the market has shifted or changed? Could it be your clients have shifted and
Yeah.
changed? You know, we're all growing and evolving, hopefully.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you
I'm
know,
not
you
so
might want to
sure
look
if
at
we
that.
all
Yeah.
do, but let's go with
Yes.
that.
Yeah. Well, I should say, you know, there's a part of, I think, each and every one of us that would like to evolve and grow.
Yeah.
Whether we do that or not is up to us.
Yes.
Right?
Agreed.
Whether we heed the call of evolution and growth.
Yeah. And like, if we hear it, that's kind of like the step, the pre-step. And then if we trust it, is another ball game.
Very true.
Right? Because I feel so many people do. If you're not like completely disconnected, mind, body, whatever, you have this nudge of something like, oh, I think this would be really, really cool to do that. XYZ, whatever it is. I mean, everyone has that. And especially with creatives that I usually work with, they all have this like, oh, this would be so cool if I could do that. And it's really the thing of like, okay, you hear it, it's there. Are you gonna go act on it?
Mm-hmm.
Not saying you have to like jump ship, abandon everything and act on it. But how can you maybe get like a nudge closer to even see if that's what it is? You don't know, right? Like, I mean,
yeah.
maybe.
Well, one thing I'm trying to think how it has been for me because I often get messages. Some of them are in the form of my clients asking for something, and I kind of tune in. Is that right? Okay, here I go moving forward. And especially if I get a number of them asking for a specific thing, then that is a big clue.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
I
a big
mean,
signpost.
do we need a billboard, right? That can
Well,
be the
sometimes we all
billboard.
do.
Yeah. Yeah. But that could be the billboard that we're looking for. But you know, if there's a number of messages that we're getting, and if our inner self is feeling excited, enthusiastic, inspired, then, you know, we may need to do some research on how to do this if it's something we've never done before.
Yeah.
And so that can be a process. We could hire a mentor who has done it before, whatever the it is, whether that be creating an online course, creating a podcast, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Writing a book.
Yeah, anything. It's like, so the fast track can often be having somebody help you. I mean, you can do research till the cows come home, but that could cause you to not move forward in a way that, you know, being accountable to somebody like a coach, like a mentor, like a friend who has done what you want to do and aspire to do. So accountability, I think, is a big piece of it. And breaking it down into small pieces rather than looking at the whole pie. And often when we look at the whole pie of what we need to do, it's overwhelm sets in, but it's really what's the first micro step you can take to create what you want to create. And that can sometimes free up the energy to move forward even more even more, even more.
Yeah. By creating like those mini wins. They're not
Mhm.
mini, but like in the sense of breaking it down.
Right.
I mean, I often get that when, I mean, I have this super sexy thing of rebrands, of doing
Mhm.
rebrands with my clients and guiding them through them. And
Yeah,
no one is per se super relaxed and excited when I think of rebranding. They're like, it's a lot of work.
it is a lot of work.
Um, and it rightly so, right?
Yeah,
And then it's like, okay, how can we break it down so you're not like getting completely overwhelmed before we even started?
exactly. And what's happening when you're working with people too, I would imagine, is there is a transformation in their business. And
Yeah.
when we transform anything, whether it be a business or a part of our lives that isn't working, it's going from one way of doing things to doing something an entirely new way.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't for the faint of heart. But
Mm-mm.
what's on the other side of that is liberation, freedom, beauty.
Yeah.
In your case, what you're creating for your clients, right? Right.
And it's
Clear messaging.
alignment. Yes.
Yep. Hmm.
And it's just, but I don't know. It's what you said, right? Like, we're always like, oh, yeah, we want to change, right? Like, I
Hmm.
think most of us listening, me included, we're like, oh, yeah, we're totally growth mindset. We want to evolve. We want to do better. We want to be better. Um, but, and then when we're actually moving parts and doing the transformation, new shit feels scary and it makes you uncomfortable as fuck.
It really
So you're
does.
feeling uncomfortable. You're like, this is not, no, I don't like
Mm.
this. No, your survival ego brain is like, scary, move away, back off. So how can we, or how do you move, or how do you work with your clients to move through this period
Yeah.
of this feels uncomfortable? I do
Huh.
not want to do this.
Yeah. So that's when I actually take a pause with them and have them breathe. It sounds so simple and basic, but it's not always
Breathing is
easy.
magical.
You know what it is, but some of the simplest things are not easy, and we
Mm-mm.
often need reminders to do the simplest things too. It's like constant reminders, even if we know we
Mm-hmm.
need to do them and we've known it for years. So, what I will do if I can sense or see anxiety in my clients or fear or, any number of reflections of overwhelm, I say, okay, let's take a pause here. What I want you to do is just take a really deep breath. And I breathe with them for just a few moments. And what begins to happen with the simplicity of the breath and bringing
Mm.
life force in is that the neural pathways, which were beginning to get really charged up and anxious and go to that fight or flight, are then beginning to calm down, beginning to soothe. We can
Mm.
self soothe ourselves
Oh,
in
yes.
the most kind of scary of circumstances,
Mm.
right? We can, like, the breath is something that is always
Yeah.
with you. And it's so simple that people forget it
Yeah.
too. And so remembering that if you're going through a
Mm-hmm.
really challenging time, you know, take some deep breaths and your mind, what may happen is your mind may clear, new ideas may begin to form, but there's no way that can happen when we're holding our breath in
Mm-mm.
because our body then feels
It's
like
not just, it's not flowing. It's just,
it's not
oh.
flowing. And what it says to the body is, I'm dying because I can't breathe right now, or I'm not taking
Mm-hmm.
the full breaths. And so
Yeah.
we're sending a message to our brain, I'm dying. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Get scared now. It's like, if you
Yeah.
want to fast track
Mm.
fear, stop breathing for a bit or hold in your breath, for a bit,
Yeah.
or don't breathe deeply
Yeah.
because that signals I need fight or flight to get out
Yeah.
of this situation.
Mm.
But what can remedy that is just taking some deep breaths. And so that's what I do with clients when they're moving through, excuse me, some kind of transformational experience. That's an opportunity to just get still and quiet. And it's counterintuitive. That's when a lot of people get busy doing something else.
Yeah.
Or they veg out, scrolling or drinking alcohol or, any number of things that cause them to numb out of
Everyone
fear,
has their like pattern of what they're
whatever it
doing.
is, eating, drinking coffee and getting
Any
really,
shopping, like it,
anything,
whatever
it
is your kind of like drug of choice.
Yeah. And every single person probably has something that they do. Running even can be, exercise.
Oh God. I mean, like it's not to say we listed a couple of things that are considered bad. But I mean, even drinking too much water can be
exactly.
right.
Like
it's not
neurotic,
the action per se. It's the situation you do this in, and for what reason. That's
right.
That's the problem, right? Like there's no problem with drinking alcohol when you're, I don't know, feeling festive, whatever, if you want to. But if you're drinking to black something out, we might get into unsafe waters.
Yeah. And it doesn't help. That's the thing. We think it's going to help, but what it does is it just
it's the short-term, long-term thing, right? Like it might helps in the short term, but no long-term benefit whatsoever.
Well, and what happens is when we're not really going through something, when we're turning our back on it, when we're looking the other way, we're putting something under the carpet, right?
Yes.
And then gradually the carpet becomes like this
it's still there. You can
bump.
see it bulking under the carpet. It's still there.
It is. It is. And that becomes an even bigger mess to work through.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everyone has a carpet. We all do. Like, it's fine. You'll be fine.
Yeah. If you have a carpet that's, loaded.
Gotta moving through is the thing.
And starting small, like looking at, what are you avoiding today that you need to do? It could be doing your taxes,
reaching out to someone you send a proposal to. That's always something people like, if I don't want to like bother them.
Or invoicing can be challenging, really beginning to own your worth in terms of being a business owner and ask for money that you rightly deserve because you did the work. It can be a number of things, but not having to deal with everything under the carpet all at once, just taking one small action can then begin to create momentum.
Yeah, exactly. Like I always think of it as that as well is a muscle. If you're like, ooh, I've never done any healing work whatsoever, and now I'm gonna right there at my like biggest childhood trauma. Ooh, that's gonna be a tough one. So I really like to take a peek under the carpet, and if you see like something minorish that you feel you can take on today, start with that.
Exactly. Yeah, and it'll give you confidence too to be able to work with the bigger things.
Yeah.
Bigger issues.
Yeah, and again, we go back to trust, right? Like that you learned and you can trust yourself to deal with shit.
Yeah. A big way that I learned how to do that, I've thought a lot about this lately in particular, is doing morning pages. So the Artist's Way, Julia Cameron, I've been doing morning pages for 25 years now.
Wow.
And I have many, many huge crates of journals from.
Have you all kept them? Like, do you still have them?
I have. And
that's such a treasure.
It is. And I've also had a thought of like, oh my God, I don't want anyone to be able to see these like when I'm gone. So I don't know exactly what I'll do. I may have a big bonfire someday with them. I don't know.
Oh, I
but
like
for
that
now, I know, letting go in that way. But for now, I love knowing that they're there. I don't actually look at them very often but I have at certain points in my life when I've needed to kind of remember who I was when I was younger.
Mm.
And because there's a wisdom that comes from any age. A lot of people talk about millennials, they don't have a hard work ethic or whatever, preconceived notions about, and that's ageism of another kind, right? We think
Yeah.
often about ageism with really having beliefs about people that are older, like negative beliefs, but it can be about people that are younger too. And
Mm-hmm.
when I have read my journals from when I was in my 20s, I feel such a fondness for that me that was
Mm.
pretty wise beyond my years. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people, I would imagine, that listen to this podcast in particular can relate to that,
Yeah.
because if you're on a spiritual journey, that didn't come lightly.
Mm.
Sometimes that call comes from a response to trauma in our childhood, having to deal with really difficult things that
Yes.
arose when we were kids that we had no control over.
Mm-hmm.
And also what I've found is, since I work with so many business owners, is a number of them have also had childhood trauma, and running a successful business has been a way to kind of alleviate their
Mm.
fears, like being in
Ooh.
control
Mm.
of their destiny, being self-employed rather than working for someone.
Mm-hmm.
Having autonomy is often a response to childhood trauma,
Mm-hmm.
not wanting to depend on anyone else, right?
Yeah, I know
Um,
that one.
oh,
Mm,
I do too.
that's a good one. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And so really, I've been able to really look at who I was from the perspective of
Mm-hmm.
my journals, and being able to read what I wrote in those days and really feeling like, wow, that person that was much younger is very much still a part of me. And
Yes.
I think that's beautiful. And so kind of reclaiming, it's an ability to reclaim all parts of ourselves,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes. And it's like I I just like the other day, really, I started kind of like going through my like whenever I have an idea, I put it on Google Notes, and then out of these ideas, like become clusters, and those clusters turn into blog posts or something. Um,
Wow.
and I had like this thing of like you have to, it boils down to the question of who are you before others told you who you are, right? And especially as business owners in the online business world, when we start, we look up to these mentors or gurus, whatever, and looking at them as like as they got all the answers because they found a way that works for them. And also sometimes because they marketed the way that they have to,
Mm-hmm.
they're the only ones who have the answers. But that's another um and like, and then you take on so much stuff until, I mean, I've been there and I built a business and I was like, I hate every single thing of this business. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just gonna more or less burn it down. I'm like, nope,
Mm-hmm.
thank you very much. um and to kind of like remember, oh, who am I? And for some people, and for me, in business it doesn't go as far back as like in other regards, but
Mm.
if you have childhood trauma or something, it has sometimes it goes back to your formative
Pre-verbal.
years.
Yes, exactly. Maybe we don't even have words for it.
Yeah.
Yes. And, there has been, for me, there have been another number of correlations, not necessarily to childhood trauma, but
Mm.
to what I made something mean when I was growing up.
Oh,
That from
yes.
my earliest role models, which were, of course, my parents, which are most of our early role models, our
Yeah,
parents,
your
who
caregivers,
you
your
model.
guardians. Yes.
Yes, exactly. And so one of them was, and I was so glad to really discover this kind of early on in my business, was I was making money at a certain point and the profit was coming in. It was great. And I was
Mm-hmm.
feeling very successful in a lot of ways. But what I realized is I wasn't truly successful in my own eyes, because I was
Oh.
working all the time. I was exhausted. And I realized that I had a belief of making money is hard.
A
Making
lot
money
of
is
us share that
hard.
one.
Right, right.
Mm.
And so I thought, well, that doesn't feel like me, actually, who I
Yeah.
am.
Mm-hmm.
Is that really one of my beliefs, or was it one that I picked up in
Yeah.
my childhood? And I began to kind of unravel that belief to the root of where it originated.
Yeah.
And what I discovered was, wow, my dad was a fantastic provider for
Mm-hmm.
us financially. And he didn't like his job. He worked for his
Mm-hmm.
father, who
Mm-hmm.
was a pretty tough guy and
Yeah.
not, I mean, very much an entrepreneur, my grandfather, but not a very nice man, I would imagine, to work
Mm-hmm.
for. Very
Mm-hmm.
perfectionistic. And so
His
my
way
dad,
or the highway, kind
pretty
of.
much, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad worked for him for many, many years. And he would come home exhausted. And then he would, I think, probably to deal with his feelings about his work, perhaps, he
Mm-hmm.
would do house projects when he got home, even though he was so tired. And then the only time I really saw him still was when he was taking a nap, just out of sheer and utter
Yeah.
exhaustion. And so I realized, wow, I think through seeing my dad just exhausted,
Yeah.
unhappy with work, making money, he made money. He did
Yeah.
really
Yeah. So
well. We had,
your child brain tied
yeah,
exhausting and money together.
yeah, making money is hard. And
Yeah.
then, so what I did is for the me that is now, like oftentimes we just buy into beliefs. We don't even know where they came from. And you don't
They're so
necessarily,
old, we
they're
hardly
so
ever.
old. Yeah. But there's power in actually pulling out that carrot in the ground that's
Oh, yeah.
all
Pull it by
knotted
the
and
roots.
yeah, get it by the roots,
Yeah.
get it out. Because sometimes if you don't get it out by the roots, like weeds,
Ugh.
they grow back, right?
Yeah, or ticks. The head
Or
stays in and it goes like,
ticks. I know,
and so it's
exactly.
disgusting. I'm coming up with
It's so
ticks now. But
gross.
but
I
that's the
know.
thing, right? You leave the head
No,
in.
it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's important to get, whatever the it is out by the root
Mm,
so that you can then begin to examine it from all sides
yeah.
and
Curiosity.
see that it's something
Mm.
outside of yourself too. Here's this naughty old hairy belief, this hairy carrot that's been in the ground for 25 years,
Ew.
and like, what is it? This isn't you. This
Yeah.
is
I don't.
something that kind of
Mm,
grew within your spirit, but you can pull it out
yeah.
and then begin to work with it. And so I began to see, okay, where in my life has making money been easy? Because if you just say, oh, making money is easy and create an affirmation,
Yeah.
that
Your
doesn't
brain is
work.
gonna be like, bullshit.
Your brain is
Yeah.
smart. So
Yeah.
your brain is like, honey, I don't believe that, you know? And so, but what you can do is you can begin to kind of convince your brain, well, here's where it happened for me. Even if you find
Yeah.
only 2 or 3 ways of making money is easy in your
Mhm.
past, then you can begin to convince your brain and then
Yeah.
you can begin to be in
And
alignment with
slowly
that
starting to
belief.
choose to say something maybe along the lines of, I know you think it's hard, but I choose
Yeah.
to believe it also
Yes.
gets to be easy.
That's
Or
right.
just,
Something like that. It's like the
yeah.
micro affirmation, right? To
Or
pave
like a
the
bridge
way.
affirmation to where you want to go. I don't know. But yeah, that's a
Exactly.
fun exercise. Like anyone who is listening, like who feels like, ooh, money issues, but I do not want to go there. This is exactly where you should go.
Exactly.
Always the pain we do not want to go. We definitely should go.
Lift up
Um,
the carpet.
exactly. Like I like that what you said. Like think about if you want to lift a carpet, your money carpet. Think back to the earliest memory you have of money. Like,
That's
what is
right.
the earliest memory you have? It doesn't matter how old you were at the time, but what's the first memory that comes to mind? And everyone will have one that will
Mhm.
instantly light up. And then take it out and just look at it. We're not saying something bad came out of this or whatever. I mean, my first money story is quite literally magical.
Hmm.
Um, but you just have to kind of look at it and just be curious
Yeah.
and be like, oh, what happened? And how did my brain make a connection? And how
That's
did it
right.
maybe support me or not support me in my journey.
Yeah. And what did my earliest role models, what was their relationship to money? And what might have I made that mean as a result of witnessing them with money or work or running a
Yes.
business
What did
or,
I make it mean? Yes.
Mhm. And what, is that belief serving me today? And if not, how can I begin to shift and change that so that I can then transform my beliefs about money to create a new story, a new reality?
Yeah. Oh, I love this. Yeah, this is so powerful to really be like, hey, but here's always like, I think so far, everyone listening is like nodding along and agreeing, totally fine. Yeah, yeah, yeah. With you in theory, all good. There comes the point where you do this when you do this work. And I'm
Mhm.
sure you're like, yup. You gotta be careful. There will be a point where most people will have the tendency to kind of like crap on their past self.
Mm. Can you give me an example of that? What
Well,
you think?
like let's stick with money. So
Mhm.
you're like, oh, okay, that was I kind of like combined money and working hard. Money is not abundant,
Mhm.
exhaustion money. Um, and then you know this, and then you do something again, kind of like where then you look at all the things you've done. Maybe you stayed in a job for longer, in a corporate job that was completely wrong for you, and you were left completely exhausted, close to burnout, but the money was good, so you stayed, whatever.
Mhm.
And then you
Mhm.
look now, with your knowledge now, you look back and say, I'm smart. I should have known.
Mhm.
And then you kind of like, with your current knowledge, you start and healing, you start to like crap on past self
Yeah.
and be
Yeah.
like, you should have known, or you should have done better, or
Yeah.
whatever. I
And
see this so often.
I do too. So, we often do the best we can at the time. Whether that was good
Yes.
enough or not, we don't know, but we often do the best we
It was good
can.
enough at that
Yeah,
time, period.
that's all you knew.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, that was the best you could do. And also, I love this expression. So, the best time to plant an oak tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now.
Yes. This
And
is
that
one of
can
those
be
cheesy Pinterest quotes that are absolutely
seriously,
100% true.
it is. And sometimes cheesy is right on target.
Mm. Oh,
And
yes, I
and when
love
we say,
cheese.
oh, that's so cheesy, it's like we might even want to look at, oh, but can I really relate so much that I'm deflecting it, right? It's like,
No
no,
shade,
I
no
know I
shade.
do that. I do that too. So I'm not calling
Takes
you
one to
out,
know one.
darling.
Takes one to know
Yeah,
one.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And so also, you know, part of going back to evolution
Mm-hmm.
and growth and
Mm.
transformation. So all of those require being in one state and moving to an entirely different state.
Yes.
That
Seed,
rarely,
little
if
tree.
ever, happens overnight. I mean, occasionally there will be people who have, like Byron Katie, I'm thinking of a
Good
wonderful
for them.
spiritual teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happened pretty much in a moment for her. She had an epiphany and it was transformative instantly. Rarely does that happen to us. We actually have to go through
Yeah.
the hallway of discomfort to get
Mm.
to
I
the
like the expression
room.
hallway of discomfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but the hallway can be so uncomfortable because
Mm.
all of us, pretty much all of us, desire to go from A to Z quickly.
Oh,
Like,
of course.
let's just
Who
get there.
wouldn't? That's
Yeah,
efficient
I
and
know.
effective. I love
I
it.
know. Exactly. But here's the thing, part of the evolution is learning as we're in the hallway.
Mm.
It's actually picking up skills
Yes.
It's being able to be with discomfort, which if we can do that, that's a big part of evolution, is discomfort and even suffering to some degree.
Yeah.
Because not that I want to say, you know, we all need to suffer, because I really believe that
very Protestant ethic.
I know, but I think if we're wanting life to be happy,
It's part of
joyous, and free
humanity.
all the
It's part of
time,
humanity.
it is. It is.
Yeah.
And part of evolution too, typically, is going through that discomfort to get to the other side. And that then creates the contrast too, where we can see, oh my God, I've come so far. And the inner pride, the compassion for others who are perhaps in the hallway that are suffering or in despair or thinking it's never going to happen for them. And we can offer them comfort and support because we've been there. That's where empathy can arise for others, empathy for ourselves,
compassion.
Yes, all of it. And also really cultivating the skill of patience, right? Which is
Going back to the oak tree. It took the oak tree 150 years.
Exactly. Yeah. And for us, that is an opportunity to really, again, breathe through the discomfort, to work through things, to take one small step, perhaps, and other times one large step or even a leap forward. And the way that we can take the leaps are taking the small steps. Initially.
Yeah.
If
if this would be like a live call-in show like on the radio, I would have now imagined like a phone with a lot of like buzzing lights, because people will be calling in and be like, I get this, Rome wasn't built in a day, so come on ladies, but like I'm having a business, I have bills to pay. How can we trust the timing of things? We don't have 150 years here.
Well, it isn't sitting back on our laurels, right? It's not like sitting on the sofa, hanging out watching Netflix. It is taking income producing activities each day. If you are struggling with money, I want to know what you're doing with your money, with your current money now. What are you doing to increase that flow? Because it does require income producing activities. And marketing can be an income producing activity, doing the actual services or creating the products, whatever it may be. Showing up to work each day can be an income producing activity. Whether it's you wanting to create a side gig, you know, how are you working on that? So I had a coaching client who worked in a job and she really wanted to create a certain side business, but she wasn't doing anything for it. It's almost like she wanted it to magically appear. And it's like, and to earn her money so that she could eventually quit her day job.
And that can be a very vicious cycle of.
I know. And she was exhausted. And well, it's like, I hear you're exhausted. So are you perhaps working harder than you need to in your main job? Maybe out of guilt that you have the side gig because you eventually want to quit your day job? I mean, that might be something to look at. Are you working more than the 40 hours a week that you were expected to? And you may begin to want to step away from that. Or if there's a way that you can begin to delegate more, if you have that opportunity, and then to begin to really figure out when can you work on your side gig business. And not only that, but when can you begin to bring money in so that you can begin to see that, oh, this isn't just some dream that I have. This is actually something that can produce income. Will it produce enough income for you to quit your day job? That's yet to be known in the very beginning. But you won't know unless you try. And if you have a business that's struggling, what are you doing that are income producing activities, and to really make a list of everything? You know, what you could do is set a timer for 20 minutes and just write down, what are all the income producing activities I could do? Not today, perhaps, but in this next week or month. and just brainstorm. Or if you have a really creative friend who comes up with good ideas, have a Zoom call and you both can set the timer and he or she can help brainstorm
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
That reminds me, I have to share this because it's also quite funny and I think it's quite a good hack.
Uh-huh.
I
Great.
was like, yeah, the Money Inc. Like, all the I remember like way back when it's like, money income generating activities.
I know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So I make that list, and then
Mhm.
I got an app. It's called Pick Me. It's
Oh,
kind of like one of those fortune wheels,
oh, cool.
and
Oh,
I
neat.
put every one of those activities. I put it on my wheel of fortune, and then I
Ah!
just spin it. And whatever it landed on, that was the activity I had to do for today.
Wow. What activity did it pick today?
Let's see. Let's pick it. Reach out to a past client.
Ah, that's a good one.
Because
Yeah.
that's something we always could do more of, right? We don't have to
Right.
create new clients. We can also nurture
No.
our old clients and just be like,
Oh.
hey, you remember we did that, I don't know, brand audit 12 months ago. How are
Mhm.
you doing? How are you holding
Yeah.
up?
Yeah, and not going into it with the intention of perhaps even getting business, but just to
No.
connect.
Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
you already have a connection. Like,
Mhm.
ideally, you're not like haven't been in touch for like 12 months. You regularly be in touch.
Mhm. Yeah.
But again, right? Like, just reaching out and be like, hey, again, connection
Mhm.
first, and then be like, hey,
Yeah.
or sometimes I even feel like, hey, you know what? Like, I don't know if it's a past client I really like working with. I like, you know what? Here's like my link, my Calendly for like 30, like for 30-minute meeting, whatever. Like, pick one, just like, I don't know, let's have a coffee chat, or if you have like something particular you're working on, like, bring it to the table. It's yours.
Nice. Nice.
And there's
That's
always
great.
coming something from that.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
if it's just more insight into my ideal client's mind, or where they're at, their stage of business, their journey.
Mhm.
Super valuable for my marketing, right? Like,
That's right.
there's always something if you're willing to kind of like just try, even if you're like, I
Mhm.
don't want to reach out. It feels like,
Mhm.
whatever. Then again, what are you telling yourself it means?
That's right.
What's the
Exactly.
story you're creating?
Yeah. Yeah. And why are you making it so hard too? If there is that there, what is that?
Yes.
How is that serving you? And is
Yes.
there a way to move through that
Why do you
that
feel you
might?
have to suffer for a
Yes,
successful
exactly.
business?
I mean,
Again, with
legitimate suffering, there is some of that in this life. But are
yes.
you making, you know, are you being a martyr? Is martyr part of your identity?
Oh,
Oh, this is so hard. Are you
yes.
complaining? Like going on a complaining diet of not complaining
Mm-hmm.
can be liberating and
Mm-hmm.
challenging. You may not even realize how often you're complaining until until you decide, I'm not going to complain for a week. See how
Yeah.
that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, yeah. I mean, I'm not. Yeah, God, everyone has one of those things though. Of like, ugh, yeah. No,
I
I want to.
know.
I like to not complain. I don't. I also would say I'm not. I'm not like, I'm more the opposite. Like, I do not complain. I do not complain until I feel like I'm like a volcano of complaints.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. You hold it in. You hold it
Mm.
in. You hold it
Oh,
in.
I'm the worst.
Yeah.
I'm the worst.
Uh,
Or like, I'm holding in, or like, as I didn't know that was a term. My therapist, she calls me one of her soap clients. Like the slippery deflecting soap clients.
oh,
So I'm like, yeah, that's
yeah.
me. Hello,
God.
this is me.
She's smart for her to be able to call you out on that.
Yeah.
Slippery soap.
That's why I still. That's why she's still my therapist after like a year. The other one did not last that long.
Yeah. No,
They were like,
uh-huh.
okay, yeah. If you don't see through my soapiness, it's not gonna work.
That's right. That's right. Wow.
Okay, so like for anyone listening, just I really loved Kristin. It was shared about like pull it out. That thing you do not want to look at, pull it out. Today, tomorrow, the next time you feel it's time. Trust your timing on that when you're ready, whenever you feel ready to pull it out, and just look at it with curiosity and see what kind of stories it reveals. I really love that. So anyone listening, that's your homework. And Kristin, like, so to kind of like wrap things up, because I don't know, we could talk for another hour at least. Let us know where people can find you online. If they want to know more about you, want to hear more from you, where can they do that?
Yeah. So you can go to my website, which is kristinmorrison.com. And it's Kristin. People always want to put that E in Kristin, but just think I have two I's like you do. And so it's Kristin Morrison,
Perfect.
two R's.com. And then I have a podcast, which is Business Pathfinder. It is coaching sessions that have been recorded by my very brave clients agreed to be coached on the podcast. Some of them I'd never worked with before. Actually, many of them
I love
I'd
that
never worked with.
concept.
Yeah, and that is a deep dive into the unknown for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, I don't even know what they're bringing to me in their session, and so we're both grabbing each other's hands and just jumping off the cliff and seeing where we end up. And it's magical, actually, where we end up, both from their vulnerability and willingness to open up and share.
Mm-hmm.
And because I've been coaching people for over 20 years, it's relatively easy for me to really hear what they're not saying as well as what they are, and to help guide them into where they might need to go for their next step in their evolution, both as a business owner and as a human being. So the Business Pathfinder, it can be found on any podcast app. It's also on my website if you go to my website. And I have webinars and workshops that I do monthly. So that's something that I do. And I'm also a business and life coach. So, yeah.
And you also brought something with us that people can download if they're like, we haven't talked about goal setting per se during this podcast, but I'm sure, like, tell us some about the goodness that's in that.
So it's for those of you who are interested in creating your best year yet. And that's something that I've been consciously creating for the past almost 10 years now. I created a goal setting workbook that helped me do that. And then I gave it to my clients who really experienced a lot. And part of it is looking at, what did you perhaps accomplish or not accomplish in the last 12 months? What would you like to accomplish or create in the next 12 months, both personally and professionally? And what might you be doing now to hold you back from that? What steps could you take to create these accomplishments that you'd like to achieve? Again, both personally and professionally, because who we are is, what we bring to all of our facets of our lives, right?
Yes.
And so that is the workbook that they can find on my homepage of my website. So if you scroll down, you'll be able to find out more and click on that and download it. And it's just a lot of business owners and just people in general have used that with great success. And you don't have to do it in January. A lot of people have this misconception about
Thank you for saying
goal
that.
setting. Yes, you're welcome. Goal setting in January. Yeah, but really you can do it at any point. I mean, we can change at any point in our lives. So why can't we set goals at any point in our life? So I really encourage you to start now. And writing your goals and your desires down is a great way to begin to achieve that. It's really, when we're entering an address into our GPS, we are beginning to move toward that destination. It's the same with goals. So writing them down is like entering the address in the GPS. That's the beginning step to getting to where you want to go.
Oh, I love this. This is the perfect way to end the scenic route. We all gotta need a compass here, even if we're on a scenic route. Kristin, thank you so much for being with me on the scenic route.
Thank you, Jennifer.